Hello, welcome to RC Video Reviews. Today we're taking a look at the 85-inch Skywing Extra NG. On this plane, I'm just going to start on the front and work my way to the back, but I'm just going to have to ask you guys right off the bat to forgive me on the framing. On a plane this big, there's just no good way to frame this thing and not get things like the backdrop out of frame. So you'll just have to be patient with me and forgive me for that one. I'll do the best I can. We'll start up front with the motor and the prop. One thing I really like about the Skywing planes is they include the spinner, and on an airplane this big, that can actually run you about 75 bucks. That's a carbon fiber spinner on an aluminum backplate, and it's covering a 24 by 10 Falcon prop in white. The power plant is a Dual Sky GA6008S, and it's going to be powered by two 6L 5000 75C batteries in series. So this is a 12S arrangement on this plane. I'll get into the canopy in just a minute. To deliver power to the motor, I've got a 130 amp Hobbywing Flyfun V5 Opto ESC, and the servos will get their power from a 2S 2200 receiver pack. The servos are KST A20 3813s. These are 43 gram servos at 8.4 volts, and I got the servo arm extensions from Northwest RC when I ordered the airplane. One thing I really want to call out on this airplane is the landing gear. I think Skywing did a really nice job. They've got a machined axle, so you really don't have to fiddle around with washers or anything. It just bolts right up. The axle comes through the carbon fiber plate right there, and then there's a couple screws that hold the wheel pants on the back. And on the outside of the wheel pant, there's a screw that goes into the axle, and it's protected by this little anodized washer to keep the fiberglass from cracking. They just did a really nice job. I was really impressed at how easy this landing gear assembly went together. As you can tell by looking down the wing to fuselage joint, there are no gaps. It's a really tight fit on this plane, so the fit and finish on Skywing planes has had me really impressed. I also like that they take care of some of the smaller details like pre-hinging the control surfaces and covering them with heat shrink, so you don't have to do that. It's not a terrible job, but what the heck, they take care of it for you, so it just takes a little bit of labor out of the assembly process. On the wingtips, they do provide for quick disconnect side force generators. I printed these 3D spacers on my printer just to provide protection for the shrink covering. So if you want to provide that type of protection, you'll have to come up with something on your own. One of the Skywing claims to fame is how they finish off the canopy. It's a really nice design, how they complete the interior, and then they actually put in two flight stations with avionics decals. It looks really sharp. It just gives it a nice finished look. Speaking of the canopy, there are two release pins. I've mentioned this on other Skywing planes. I'm not a big fan of having these loose pins. I found out that the tips have holes in them, so what I think I'll do is run some fishing line through there, knot them up, and then run the other end through the canopy so I can tie them both to the airplane. With both pins out, you slide the canopy back and just lift it off, and it's, again, really nice fit. I don't have any complaints about fit and finish on this plane. The one thing I will say about fit and finish is they really didn't design this one for electric. So on the firewall up front for the motor, I had to kind of figure out how to place that motor on my own. There were no markings for a radial mount, so that did take a little bit of extra time, but I got it worked out. I'm using, as I mentioned, two 6L 5000 75C Liperior batteries connected in series. For the radial link, I'll be using Express LRS with this Maytech R24D. I have one receiver on there now connected to an X10 power expander, and I will be connecting another receiver and mounting it somewhere else in the airframe separate from that antenna to give me that dual receiver capability. And out of the back of the X10 power expander, the PWM pins for the servos. Here's the 14 gauge wire that I'll be using to power the power expander and provide current on the rail. And there's the flight battery, the 2200 2S I mentioned earlier. Skywing does a really cool thing routing the elevator and rudder wires. They run them inside this little plastic tube. So if you ever have to change one for whatever reason, it won't be too hard to feed a string back there and change your servo wire out. The wings use a quick disconnect apparatus to secure the wings to the fuselage. And the way that works is you pop this little slider up, and when you do that, that guillotine releases that screw, and then the wing can separate from the plane. There's also a little indicator up here that prevents you from sealing the canopy down on the fuselage to prevent you from flying in the event you forget to latch your wings. There are two quick release mechanisms on this plane, one on the front and one on the back right there. So those wings are on this plane nice and secure. As we work our way back to the empennage, here's the KST servo for the rudder, and that again is Northwest RC servo extension. The elevator servos are embedded completely within the horizontal stabilizer, So if you want to remove the horizontal stabilizer, you simply pull that pin out. It's just like the Canopy pin up front. You slide this little guillotine mechanism down and the horizontal stabilizer comes off the plane nice and clean. The only thing left to do is disconnect the servo wire. The rudder has got a piano wire hinge and it's got a 90-degree bend that sits underneath this beauty block. So when you put the tail wheel on, you do need to use that beauty cover and that holds that pin into place. I was impressed how Skywing included covers for the ventilation openings. So all you have to do after you remove the heat shrink is just screw those covers in place and it gives the airplane a really nice finished look. Good job, Skywing. The cowl has 4 retaining screws and it's already aligned, so you don't really have to do any work lining things up. All you've got to do is screw in 2 screws, one there on the left, one on the right, 2 on the bottom, and set the back plate for your spinner to the correct depth and you're all set. Overall, I've been very pleased with my Skywing planes, and this 85-inch Extra NG is no different. The only area that I had any difficulty at all was getting the motor centered on the cowl properly. Just took a little extra work because there were no markings. So once you figure that out, it's pretty much downhill from there. The rest of the airplane went together perfectly. The hardware kit is top-notch. The fit and finish on the airplane is what I would consider excellent. The paint and graphics are very, very good, and I think they've just got a really neat value equation on these planes. I expect to maiden this plane very soon, so keep an eye on the channel for that. I want to remind you, if you like this kind of content, please subscribe and hit that notification bell so you know when new videos hit the channel. That's all I've got for today. Take it easy. Hey, if you like the work I do here on RC Video Reviews, please consider joining me on Patreon. For about the price of a cup of coffee, you can help me keep making videos just like this one. If you'd like to help out, there's a link in the description and on your screen.